I want to speak about one of the most attractive features that you're able to develop, whether you're a man or a woman. This is obviously going to be geared a little bit more towards men, but I think anyone could learn this, and actually it becomes something that's incredibly valuable for other people. And I think that part of the reason why this ability is so valuable is because it's a very scarce commodity. You developing this makes you one of the top percent if you have the ability to be able to do this. Most people do not. And we're going to draw a distinction later between the version of this ability that most people are doing and how we would consider ourselves to be. It's listening, it's in the title, I've given it away, but good listeners. But actually, it's not really listening. A lot of the time, it's just kind of like sitting there and being kind of passive and agreeable and validating someone's perspective without really fully paying attention to what they're saying. And then we're going to talk about true listening and developing the capacity to listen very closely and very truly to what someone else is saying, such that the result that we're looking for here, and this is not just for the other person, it's for you as well. This is an immensely satisfying process when it's done properly and you get some weight behind you in it. The result that we're going to be getting out of this, we're looking for, is that the person feels like you're entirely present with one another. They are very much enjoying your attention. They're very much enjoying the space between the two of you. There's a closeness, there's an intimacy. This is why it's geared towards attraction in this topic. And the other thing is that it's just very enjoyable for you to learn this as well. And it's particularly enjoyable if you're someone who's not particularly good at this, or you find that you're someone who gets distracted very easy when people are talking, or you just, like, if you're being honest, you just don't really care about what people have to say, or like even worse, so maybe you're just like chronically interrupting people. You'd be surprised actually that developing this capacity to listen very closely to other people, and you can practice it in this video, for example, by not clicking on other tabs or skipping or making it faster or anything. The ability to actually just listen to what someone else has to say and not just jump to some conclusion about what you think and how it fits into your life. It's being able to sort of set yourself aside and give yourself to the occasion more. This is very, very satisfying. This is one of these things that can make your life 10x your enjoyment in your relationships with people, counterintuitively. I know at first it might seem like, really? Just listening to people can make my interactions deeper, more meaningful, and make my life more enjoyable? And it's like, yes, absolutely it can. I guarantee you this. And on top of that, more, again, geared towards the focus of this video, it is going to be a big pillar in your ability to build attraction with other people. There is something very attractive about someone being present with you. If you're a woman, there's something that's very attractive about a man being present with you, paying attention to what you have to say, responding appropriately and in a calibrated way to your stories and your experiences, knowing how to move with you, with your emotions, knowing how to contribute to a conversation. And same thing if you're a man as well, right? Like, it's very attractive for us if women can listen to what we have to say. When we feel close and we feel heard and we feel understood, it actually is something that I think women, my experience with this is women are more aware of how attractive this can be typically, because I think women are often much better at registering subtlety. But I think that men tend to we tend to experience this more, but we don't necessarily notice how attracted we are to it. I do, personally, because I'm hypersensitive to most things, for better or for worse. So I'm really aware when someone's truly paying attention to me. But anyway, without waffling on any further, I'm going to start this off by giving... I want to talk about, first and foremost, ingredients, what not listening is, like what that actually looks like, and some common sort of symptoms of not paying attention to someone else, how that feels to be in that kind of conversation if you're not listening. And then I want to talk about the kind of the listening that we usually think we're doing, which is still a kind of listening, but it's sort of passive listening. It's more like a just kind of going through the motions. It's kind of more of an agreeable, placating function, to be completely honest. And it is important with people that this is done as well. There are different levels to how intensely you can listen. And then eventually we'll get to what it means to truly listen and some of the distinctions that we can make in that as well. So let's get into all of those now. So we'll start off by just quickly brushing over what it's like not to listen to someone else. And I know that this can be, it almost seems like this might be a bit of a trite and a very obvious thing that you wouldn't need to hear. But given the amount of people who are quite bad at this, and the fact that this has got worse in modern culture and society, I still think it's important to go over these. So some examples of what it looks like when someone is not listening. The obvious, first and foremost one, is interrupting, cutting people off, and like just someone will be saying something and you just straight up cut them off and start talking about yourself. This is the lowest grade. It's complete lack of attention to what someone's saying, or rather it's a little tiny bit of attention, but it has no pressure, has no force behind it, so it can't come to fruition. It's immediately liberated to yourself, from the other person to yourself, and then made about your thing. So this is kind of more of a vampiric attention grabbing. And then on top of that, also not paying attention to someone with your body, meaning that you're not making eye contact with them, you're not sitting in front of them, you're not moving with them in the experience, you're sort of just all over the place and scratching and kicking, and there's a lot of excuses that get made for this, especially again in the modern time. I know that some people, I do want to extend compassion to some people who have a very difficult time either with the intimacy that comes with listening. This is something that does need to be acknowledged. Or also some people have actual like real serious problems with attention span. What we're referring to more here is just people who don't really care. So it's like your body language is all over the place. You're kind of just going like, yeah, whatever. And like you're like barely there at all. And the way that this comes across, like in a dating scenario, romantic scenario, is that this person doesn't really care about me or what I'm saying. So depending on the other person, if there's someone who has more self-worth and higher sense of self-importance and value, they'll probably just consider you not a very good person to talk to and move on, which is the appropriate response to someone who isn't paying attention to you. Or if, unfortunately, there are lots of cases where someone will have like lower self-worth or value, and their inherent assumptions or beliefs subconsciously are that they're not really worth being listened to. And so it actually feels normal for people not to listen to them. And then what they'll do is they'll often try to placate the other person by doing a kind of listening, which is usually the second kind, which we'll get onto in a minute. And that's actually very sad. But, it's the idea of like someone interrupting you, moving all over the place, not hearing what you're saying, not being able to remember any of what you're saying, not really responding appropriately. And even worse, like this is horrible. I honestly, all the humanity, when you see people nowadays hanging out with one another and they're wearing AirPods while hanging out with one another. And you think to yourself like, really? Do you really need music when you're hanging out with your friends independently? Like, fair enough if you're watching a bloody jazz show or something together, but come on, guys. Like, or you'll see people at a restaurant and it's like they're talking, but they're both on TikTok at the same time. And it almost makes you feel bad just for like when you know how wonderful it is to pay attention to one another, and how that really builds connection, whether it's friends or relationships. It's sad to see this kind of thing, but you get some of these ideas. It's all this kind of just attention being scattered, completely unfocused, and all over the place. So that's the first kind that we just want to brush over that quickly to give an obvious idea of what that looks like and how you can see it. The second kind of listening, and this is what, people who often identify with being good listeners based on the Dunning-Kruger effect here, it's like this is the kind of listening where someone's saying something, but you're not actually really paying attention. It's more just like you've kind of, I don't want to say given up. That sounds a bit harsh, but you're sort of just letting them talk because you know that they're going to talk anyway. And it's kind of an acting. You're kind of placating the other person. You know that they just want to talk, and you're just going And again, I'm not completely judging this. I do feel like there's actually a place for this. I do feel like generally we need to be somewhat agreeable with one another, even when it's not always something we want to, because if not, we would have all wiped each other out by now. So there is some level of importance in just being able to listen kind of passively. But the thing is, you're not really paying attention very much. And again, this can also be a kind of performance or acting, like I mentioned in the last example. If you're someone who struggles with self-worth, particularly in romantic situations, you might just keep like sort of being like, oh yeah, right, yeah, cool, and you're kind of like filling the space and trying to make sure everything's okay all the time. And you don't want any pressure or attention. You don't want any attention drawn on you, obviously, because that would be like really uncomfortable. So yeah, no, what were you saying? And it's kind of like this constant giving to the other and not really knowing where to find your footing in the interaction. It creates for a kind of pretend synergy and attraction between the two of you, but it's not real attraction. It's not real a real bond. A real bond comes when it's not necessarily always 50-50, but it's kind of like an oscillation between 60-40 to 60-40 on both sides, is what I seem to see it as. It's like a dance you do between you. Sometimes there's more of you, and there's the moving with the experience of your consciousness, and then sometimes it's her consciousness, and vice versa. But this second kind of listening it's just kind of like you're going with what someone's saying without really paying attention. It's passive in nature. And the good, easy way to tell if you're doing it is afterwards. Do you really remember what that person was saying? And another way is, are you curious? We'll get more into this in a minute with the listening we're going to be focusing on here. But are you actually curious about what that person is saying? If you're not, and it's more passive, and you don't really care, that's a good indicator that it's this kind of halfway listening. Better than nothing, but not really what we're getting into here. So let's get into the premise here, which is the true listening. True listening comes actively, not passively. When you're truly paying attention to what someone's saying, you're slowing yourself down and you're giving them the gift of your attention. So if someone's telling you about an experience they had that day, you're moving with that experience. You're actively meeting that experience with your attention. You're bringing your attention towards them, and you're enveloping their experience with your experience. If someone's sharing something that's good about their life right now or challenging about their life, you're moving with it. And this is genuine. It's real. It's palpable. It's felt between the two of you. It actually closes the distance between the two of you. This is why it can be so attractive and why it can build so much tension in a positive way. It can build so much tension between the two of you because you're closing that distance to really meet the other person. It's a very simple thing, but it's also very subtle. It doesn't get talked about as much because I feel like, especially in like the dating world, like there might be some stuff that talks about listening, but it's not like the second kind of listening, right? It's like, oh, pay attention to what she's saying. But what I'm talking about is like really give her your attention. Like be lavish with your attention. Not in a way that you're trying to placate her and fill the space because you're nervous. Know where you're coming from. But once you're grounded, you want to... I'm trying to give you an image. I'm trying to give an image of what it is that how you want to be coming across with this. You want to come across in a way where you have an abundance of energy and attention because you're present and conscious, and that it's like no big deal. And the fact that you're actually paying attention to her doesn't really deplete the reservoir of awareness that you are as that present figure in front of her or with him. Does that make sense? It's like it doesn't damage the ocean that it creates a wave, right? It takes nothing away from it because it's a movement of it. So you can understand, like, or you can probably pick up, there's kind of almost like a more spiritual aspect to this kind of listening. And it's a form of dhyana, right? It's a form of absorption in the other person's content. Where this really starts to become amazing in your romantic relationships is that as you build more of a closeness and a bond with someone, and you can build this in an hour sometimes if the situation's right, or usually it takes a while. Usually it takes a bit more getting to know each other when more trust is developed, depending on all sorts of factors, a million factors. But what starts to happen is, as there's more trust, more aspects of self will present themselves. Some aspects of self present themselves right away. These are usually the more persona-oriented aspects of self persona, by definition, is the aspect of self that we meet with the ego to the world. It's kind of like where the subjective and objective meets, how we show up and how we want to be perceived. Persona means mask, literally, in Latin. They're the aspects of self we tend to be more comfortable with initially. And then over time, it's more of those ego aspects. It's more like, here's who I actually am. And these are the more attractive aspects of you and her. They're the more authentic aspects of self. This is what we tend to be attracted to in one another. And then over time, even the shadowy aspects of the personal unconscious will come forth as well, right? So these are the things that we don't like about ourselves, that we prefer to ignore. And some of these are like sort of on the border of shadow and ego, like we don't like them and we're kind of just like, oh God, I wish I could, anyway. But then there's like the real shadow stuff that just comes out sometimes, and that can be, it can be challenging if you're not really paying attention, because and this is actually something that can be like quite a trap. Like if you're in that second category of attention and then like a shadow aspect comes out and you're like, oh, what? Like it's like too much. But if you're really paying attention, consciousness and the light of awareness can subsume that material in such a way where that presence is actually very healing. If you're familiar with like a system like IFS, different parts are smelling you out over time with one another, and you're learning to express more openly and freely, getting to the point where being with one another is a kind of it's a shared experience where intimacy is like a byproduct of the closeness, right? So the way that you hold her hand when you're really paying attention to her is more electric and alive and vivid than if you were just doing that because you thought it's what you needed to. The way that you kiss her, you're really going to feel that. And there's going to be more aspects of you that are involved and more aspects of her. And there's going to be a fusion of you both together. The way that you make love as well, the way that you share experiences, the way that different aspects of you come together to play with other aspects of one another in different ways. More adult aspects, childlike aspects, parental aspects, whatever. This is really what a relationship is all about. It's about the dance of different aspects of self coalescing to create a synergy between both people. And it can be very beautiful. And the reason listening is so foundational to this is without the ability to listen really closely, you're not able to create enough access to these aspects of... I mean, there are other ways that this is developed, but listening is a very direct way. So hopefully that makes sense there. And as for how to develop this, because I don't like how-tos, and I don't really make my videos like that, because I find that once the topic or the principle is understood, if there's affinity with what's said and there's resonance, there will be you will find it for yourself, and you will figure out how to do that yourself, like I have in this case. But nevertheless, like I do think it can be useful to sometimes have a sense of like something you can do to help you develop maybe a sense of what this is like. A good way of doing this, I found, a little way, is if you're someone who tends to skip things, like I said about this video, or it could be a song. I do this on Spotify. Like I'll want to listen to a song, and then like I'll want another bit of another song, and then I'll like be this thing, and then it's like, oh, now I want to listen to metal, and now I want to listen to like EDM, and now, oh, but then there's this, and I'll kind of jump around, and it leaves you feeling kind of scattered, because it's like you've eaten bites of all these different foods, but not really actually sat down and had a meal presently, and so you're not sated. It kind of leaves you more dissatisfied than when you started, paradoxically. So if you're someone who does this in different ways, see if you can direct your attention more towards one thing. That's the initial step here. So if you're someone who's on their phone all the time when you're watching TV, just see if you can pay attention to one or the other, and do this for like a couple of minutes. Or the other thing is, if you're at like a bus stop, or God forbid, if you're with your friends, take your fucking AirPods off. For God's sakes, have some courtesy, have some dignity. I'm just kidding, like halfway. But yeah, if you're at the bus stop or something, do you need to be on your phone? Like, can you just sit there and like, it's like, oh, but then I'm just waiting. And it's like, right, feel what that's like. Feel the pressure of waiting. It's an alive, it's an emotion. It's something there. There's a bit of frustration to it even. What is that like in your body? What is that like in the experience? You're learning to cultivate a sense of what it's like to be in touch with experience the way it is, without manipulating or modifying it or amplifying it or turning it down. You're just being with what it is. And what you'll notice is that the more awareness develops over time, the more concentration develops. In Zen, they call this jiriki. It's like this sort of spiritual intensity that develops from within, endogenously. The application of attention becomes a lot more easy, and attention itself, we'll make other videos about this in the future, but a lot of the things that people are struggling in personal development actually come down to a lack of being able to wield attention in a way that's strong, firm, unwavering, and true. When you have that kind of attention, which really comes from it really comes from more insight into the nature of what you are, or it comes from unwavering meditation or like consistent practice over time, inquiry. When you have more of a grounding in this, a lot of the problems that we often have, that we struggle immensely with socially and personally, are like peanuts. They just don't have enough traction to hold on. So start thinking about things in terms of, how can I pay more close attention? Another way you can do this, I mean, you can literally just make up your own ways of doing this. Another way you can do this is, if you just sit in the room and like find an object and look at it very closely for like a few minutes, and then see if you can look at it and then concentrate on an object, but then see if you can sort of make your vision diffuse to take in the whole room, and then bring it back to the object. And you'll notice that you're modulating your attention in these very subtle ways that we don't often talk about, because we're usually too occupied with teaching people and children absolutely useless bollocks. If you learn how to modulate your consciousness and attention, you can basically apply that to pretty much whatever you want. And over time, it gets more sustained. We're going off topic about this video being about an attractive quality, but trust me, in terms of your dating and relationship life as well, this is huge. A lot of the little sort of like social quirks and issues that we have with one another, what I mean by quirks and issues is a lot of the discomfort or the difficulty that we'll feel with the sort of anxious tension that comes up when we're meeting new people or having experiences with different people. It can actually come from not having a centered kind of attention. It's particularly potent when you meet someone or like if you're a man and you meet a woman who's grounded in herself and she has that ability to ground her attention, and you have that as well, you can find one another a lot quicker. And the closeness and the ability to share and explore and move with one another is going to be very amplified by this. So I highly recommend developing just attention for its own sake, and have fun with it. See if you can just pay attention in different ways to different things in your life. Like, you'll notice that this becomes its own, like, almost like a spiritual practice in its own right, just the ability to pay attention in different ways. And the way this will impact your relationships, like I said, is huge. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I could just rant about attention for ages, but I just wanted to bring it up in this context particularly, because for me this has been really life-changing, and it's made it so it's like I've been able to transmute nervous energy into more confident, present, enjoyable energy when I'm with a woman. And the girl that I'm dating right now, for example, I feel that I've not been seeing her for that long, but I've learnt so much about her, and I feel she's learnt so much about me as well. And I do really believe that's just because we want to be able to pay attention to one another. And it's a big part of it that doesn't always get talked about. So hopefully this gives you some notion of how valuable this can be. Hopefully at some gut level you can register what I'm saying. I'm going to cut that off there. If you have not already and you found this valuable in any way, I appreciate you subscribing to the channel, liking the video, sharing this to anyone you feel might get value out of it. My email's down below for all like coaching on one-on-one stuff. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.